Right, today's the day. This has been several weeks in the making. Obviously, the show is long, and I wanted to wait for it to finish before making this video. And yeah, the time has come. Road to Kingdom Ace of Ace ended last week, as of time of recording, about 5 or 6 days ago. I don't know. Anyways, for those of you who don't know, Road to Kingdom, Ace of Ace. I'm going to be reading Wikipedia for some of this. I also have my own notes. But yeah, we're just going to go over the show. I have my own notes. But in general, I'm just informing y'all of basically all of it without you needing to watch it yourself. So, yeah. Road to Kingdom, Ace of Ace is an ongoing South Korean, well, not ongoing anymore. Basically, it's a South Korean reality competition survival show created by our beloved Mnet. Um, and essentially, for those of you who don't know, there was Road to Kingdom and Kingdom Legendary War that aired in, I'll fact check myself, but I believe it was like 2021 or something. I'm not entirely sure. I wasn't in the fandom at the time, but I did watch it about a year after it aired or something with some friends. It was a really fun time. It really got me into Stray Kids. And I do think that having those shows can really help fans discover what makes the groups that they like special, right? I do think it's a good opportunity for them to showcase their skills, etc., etc. The prize that was pitched was 100 million won and an opportunity to attend KCON. So 100 million won, roughly 100,000 Canadian dollars. Don't know that conversion in USD. Sorry, it's just probably less than that in USD. Admittedly, so this season, although it's called Road to Kingdom, for those of you who were misled by the title, this is not a prequel to a Kingdom Season 2. The winner does not get to participate in any other show after this. It's just this one. Um, you can make the case that the prizes aren't necessarily all that enticing. Um, you can make the argument of like, is this even worth just a KCON performance? It's not. A lot of these groups would manage to go to KCON without participating in a survival show. So the participating groups, we have 8 Turn, we have Gravity, we have ONEUS, we have Tempest, we have the Crew One, which is a mega crew formed by the members of ATBO and Just B. We have the New Six, and we have Unite. Pre the airing of the show, I was coming in as a fan of especially ONEUS and Just B. And Just B is quite recent. It's mainly just because of buildup. Um, but I also very much enjoy and am arguably a fan of Gravity and 8 Turn as well. The other groups I was curious of, I've heard their music before, but I wasn't necessarily specifically a fan of them. Unite in particular, I was pretty curious about because I saw AB6 live a couple months ago, and I know that, they're from the same company, and I would expect them to also be a good group. Also, Taemin is the host of the show, which I would argue that, like, knowing the lineup of contestants and the amount of contestants who are Taemin stans, I was like, there's gonna be a couple of contestants of Road to Kingdom who are going to be thrilled just to be in Taemin's presence. And I do think that that was the case. Watching the show, you can very much tell that the contestants are absolutely thrilled that he's there. In the final episode, a lot of them made their speeches to Taemin saying that they were grateful that he was there and that they were grateful to perform with him, in front of him, all that. So the rules of the show, which sets it apart from season 1 of Road to Kingdom, uh, is the overall results are of like two ranking systems. So you have the team ranking and the ace ranking. And in each round, all the groups pick their ace, which is the center of the performances, but also usually has like their own solo, all of that kind of vibe. It was difficult for a lot of the groups to understand the full scope of this system, of the fact that it's very much centered on the ace. There was a pre-evaluation, which was quite interesting. It caused a little bit of drama for episode 1, where basically there was a self-evaluation by all of the other groups and a public pre-vote. And based on all of this, you can already kind of tell who's going to rank high. Um, a lot of people predicted that Gravity was going to win. A lot of people predicted that there was also a good chance for ONEUS to win. ONEUS has a much higher amount of experience compared to the other groups in the lineup, so that was a thing. A little bit of a tense moment in episode 1 was where Unite was ranked 7th in the like evaluation by the other groups, and Unsung, their leader, was not thrilled about it, uh, and that he refused to shake hands with the other leaders because he was like, "Now we got to prove ourselves." And obviously he got evil edited a little bit because it's like, "Oh my gosh, he's so disrespectful," but it's like, no, it's causing a little bit of drama on the show. Anyways, the show starts on episode 1 with uh, some moody inspirational openings from all of the groups. Um, they're talking about, we've succeeded so far, but we want to challenge ourselves, and et cetera, et cetera. It's classic Mnet edited, all that stuff. And I was uncomfortable with the idea that, especially ONEUS, was sharing the sentiment of like, oh, well, it feels like we're not successful yet. Like we've gotten all these things, but it still feels that there's something missing. And I have thoughts about that. Obviously, ONEUS is successful, and even if you don't think that they're successful, they have a fan base, and like a fan base that loves them for what they do and who they are. Like, that's obviously insanely valuable, but it sucks that, yeah, if you don't have a certain amount of music show wins, if you don't have music show wins at all, like, a lot of these groups can feel like they haven't made it, which is silly. I mean, I understand where they're coming from. To me, at the very least, as an international fan, it's a little goofy. So each of the groups chooses an ace, and this ace does a performance. Um, these are little like 1 minute opening performances, and most of them tie into, I think all of them, no, most of them tied into the group performance as well, which was nice. Um, I think 8 Turn is the only one who didn't. Like, their group performance didn't really have to do with the ace performance. Um, yeah. So for the aces for episode 1, for this ace performance, we have Hwanung from ONEUS. You'll have to excuse my pronunciation of some of these names. Myungho from 8 Turn, uh, Lim Jimin from the Crew 1, Hanbin from Tempest, who you may know from Island if you're not as familiar with some of the contestants of these groups. Junhyuk from the new Six, Dae from Unite, and Hyungjun from Gravity. So most of these were dance performances, with the exception of Junhyuk and Dae. Junhyuk did a vocal performance and Dae did a rap performance. I think the rap was a good idea just to like introduce the group and to prove his skills, all of that. It did feel overwhelming underwhelming, sorry, compared to the other performances. I will admit that. Um, yeah, the vocal performance was good. It was a good idea. It's just you see a situation where vocalists and vocal performances, especially in this show, were quite undervalued by both the other groups and the fans. And that's a pattern that you see from the very beginning. And it's kind of unfortunate, but that's just kind of what happened. So both Hwanwoong and Lim Jimin tied for first. And then Hyungjin from Gravity came in seventh. And the catch was that the team in seventh would not be able to perform in the episode, essentially. The reality is, a lot of people are just watching what gets posted on YouTube. Um, so if you only watched on YouTube, you might not even notice that Gravity is performing it like not in front of the other groups. Uh, yeah, but that was a big motivation, I imagine, for Levity to then like really vote for Gravity later on, because they already were established as like the group with the biggest fandom and the most like music show wins. Again, they were basically the main candidate for first place. For the episode one performances, the new six's opening was kind of mid. The rest was pretty great. The crew one had some great moments, some good stunts. There were no vocals. They were really acting like a dance crew in episode one, which is fine. They don't have any official releases, so it's kind of the only thing that they could do. I would have liked a little bit of vocals, but that's just because I know Ganu and Bane from Build Up, right? So I knew that they had some really great vocalists on the team at the very least. 8 Turn was great concept, fun stage. They stood out. Like I said earlier, they were young, they were fresh, they came in swinging. That's what you want for episode one. Tempest had some great stunts, some great choreo. One of the members got injured during the performance, which happens a couple times in the show that members actually get injured while either on stage or while rehearsing. I'm never necessarily comfortable with that. To me, it's always safety. If there's a move that you know is really risky, a stunt that you know is really risky, either practice it a bunch until you know that you can do it right, or cut it out of the performance entirely. But I understand that those are the moments that can stand out to the audience. Not always. But yeah, that's just my personal opinion on that. ONEUS, live vocals, obviously live, which is something I noticed throughout the whole show, is ONEUS's vocals are like pretty obviously live in every single one of the rounds, except the finale, to be completely honest. Whereas the other groups, I couldn't necessarily tell when the vocals were live. And in some cases, I was like, that line probably wasn't live, right? Those kind of situations. Um, in Kingdom Legendary War, they had that whole thing of like, oh, well, we're gonna make it a rule for it to be live vocals. And I think that was a little more enticing for the audience. If people make mistakes, then they make mistakes, you know what I mean? That's kind of part of the competition, I would say. Because it can't be a thing of like, oh, well, you can make mistakes dancing, or you can't make mistakes dancing because it'll be obvious, but you can make mistakes in your vocals because, like, the backing track will back you up, or it's not live vocals, right? I don't think that that's necessarily fair. It also puts a lot of pressure on the dancers versus the vocalists, right? And I think everyone should get an equal amount of pressure, at the very least, in terms of positions within the group and all that. For both the ace battle and team battle, in episode one, it was the other groups that were voting for the groups that they thought was the best. I don't think that this is a good approach. For the team battle, there was also the audience votes, but in general, relying on the other contestants to vote each other can easily lead to bias. Um, literally some of these groups are like friends, but also they're going to vote for the group that they perhaps have the least chance of winning kind of situation. And that can put a group like ONEUS at a disadvantage, hypothetically. Anyways, 8 turn ends up winning first place. They have for the oh my gosh, for the team performance. Yeah. For the team performance, 8 turn gets first place. Uh I'm not gonna play the whole like, oh, one team deserves it over the other situation. 8 turn is very good. All the groups were pretty good. But I think 8 turn just came in strong. They came in young, they came in fresh, and I think that was nice and refreshing for the other groups that were watching and the audience that were watching. So I was admittedly hoping early on in the show that like we were gonna get some X1 interactions from some of the members there. Insung from Unite and Hyungjin and Minhee from Gravity were literally in a group together in the past. So I was like, oh, you might get some fun interactions there. And also Gunu from the Crew One and um, Hanbin from Tempest were also in Island together, like I mentioned earlier. So, could have gotten some fun interactions there. I don't know. That spoiler alert doesn't happen. You don't really get some interactions from those individuals specifically, but also the interactions between the groups as a whole was really low. Like even Kingdom Legendary War, which was filmed during COVID, and they had restrictions on how much like time the groups could spend together or whatever, because they had like separate rehearsals and all that. Even then, they got a lot more interaction than the groups in this show. So round one, you have 3 matches basically of like doing reinterpretations, like covers. And so you have 2 one-on-one matches with Stray Kids songs and Enhypen songs, and then a triple match with NCT, The Boys, and TXT. I think especially for the public, the Crew One is really at a disadvantage because like by name value alone, and they debuted like a month before the show aired. By name value alone, literally no one knows who they are. So if you're looking at their video, their performance from like a thumbnail, like it's kind of hard to recognize the members, and you realize like, oh hey, this is just being ATBO. Like I didn't realize, right? So I think there was a lot of a thing of I can imagine both Boat and Only B were kind of probably surprised that their groups were on this show. I kind of was, admittedly. And that like they didn't really advertise well enough that the groups were going to form a new group together. Um, they had limited time, I guess. But I remember watching like a video from the Crew One because I was like, oh, I know that they're participating. Let me, learn more about them. And I'm squinting and I'm going, that's just B. I didn't know this was a collaboration project. Like that kind of situation, I'm sure must have happened to a lot of people. I'm sure there are people that even now don't know who the Crew One is and don't know that it is the members of ATBO and Just Beat. I'll kind of speed run through this. The new six picks Phobia by Stray Kids. They win their one-on-one match. Tempest chooses Maniac. The performance wasn't entirely all that different from the Maniac music video, but in general was a little underwhelming, so they did lose that round. Um, for the aces, honestly, for all of these performances, the aces aren't really obvious, so I won't harp on that too much. Uh, 8 turn did Future Perfect by Enhypen. And then Unite did Bite Me by Enhypen. They won that one on one. For the triple match, One Us chose Kick It by NCTU, right? That's an NCTU one. Or no, sorry, that's NCT 127. My bad. Um, the crew one chose Watch It by The Boys. And ATBO are under the same company as The Boys. So they actually had Juyeon from The Boys like help them during that round. Whether it helped is debatable. And Gravity picked Sugar Rush Ride by TXT, and they won that round of the three. And I will say, uh, the I think Sugar Rush Ride fit them really well as a song. Interacting with the props that you have on stage is really important, and I think some of the groups do it less in round one, but then kind of improve later on. There was a lot of focus on the both the New Six and Tempest. Their performances were kind of similar, and there was a lot of emphasis on that. Uh, yeah, I think both the teams got relatively low scores potentially because of that. Based on what Eight Turn did in episode one, to me it was absolutely no surprise that they picked Future Perfect. Like those two stages are virtually the same, just in terms of like concept and vibe. And I think that really hurt them. Eight Turn got seventh in that round, and I would honestly blame it mostly on that of the fact that like just because you got first place with this concept on episode one does not mean you should be repeating it. I very much think that that was the wrong course of action there. But I will say, y'all, Unite ep- episode two onwards, my jaw was on the floor. Unite picked Bite Me by Enhypen, and I'm actually not a huge fan of that song, the original, just because I don't think the chorus is like super melodically interesting, right? And Unite said, you know what? Let's fix that. Let's add like some more interesting vocals, some ad libs, some harmonies, all that good stuff. And y'all, Unsang is crazy. His acting is crazy. In episode one, there's a moment where he just like right before their performance, he just like screams because he's like trying to get into the vibe and like he scares the shit out of like half of the contestants. But it gives you that like vibe of like Unsang is a very loud and big presence, right? And picking him as the ace for almost all of the performances down the line was really smart. Um, I'm not gonna say that he hard carried necessarily, but I will say that I can very much tell why he got as far as he did in like Produce X 101, right? Because I knew that he was in the finale lineup for that. Gravity did Sugar Rush Ride. I think their stage was also really cool. It had similar vibes to the Bite Me one, but like different concepts, different themes for sure. But pretty cool. I really didn't like the chorus because these are all like reinterpretations of the music, right? And I think that the dance break or whatever, it just didn't sound good to me. I honestly didn't like it. If I were to choose a group from the triple match, because in general I agree with the other two rankings, in the triple match I probably would have picked Kick It, but like to be honest, that performance to me, I just don't think the choreo from the original song is all that interesting, so that was a little boring to me. Uh, I don't know, I do like some of the props and the concepts and the vibes. It was okay. I don't know. As a Two Moon, I was not gagged. I was not crazy about it. I was just like, all right, that's fine. Yoon was the ace for Eight Turn. And again, they got seventh in these team performances. And he actually doesn't end up being the ace ever again in the show. And this was a moment where 8 Turn had to reevaluate their understanding of how the show works. The ace isn't necessarily just someone who, like, oh, has a rap verse at some point, right? Like, the ace, as far as I understand it, has to be very much the main character of the story that you're telling. Um, in a lot of cases, it was that where the ace was really standing out, was really interesting. Um, yeah, big emphasis on story that you see a lot more later on. Wanas's vocals were like obviously live. Uh, Gunu has a high note at some point, and I'm like, that didn't look live. I'm sorry. But the crew one does sing, and they have really good vocals. Obviously, Bane is there. Come on. Also, this is the first time I like took note that Bane was there because he was kind of hidden for episode 1 and 2. But yeah, the crew one was still doing the hourglass, which they ditched the hourglass later on. Uh, it I don't know, it didn't really resonate with people of like reusing this prop. I understand that there's some symbolism attached to it. It's just not that enticing. It's one prop, you know? um Hyungjun is like already honestly already fed up with the show by episode 3. I would argue by episode 2, but like he's already been through a lot to be fair. But he does decide to be the ace again. And Gravity's approach is more like, okay, well you're going to be the ace, but we're going to like uplift you. We're going to help you, right? And I would argue that Taehyung was basically the second ace of that performance as well. He does really well, but he's also in the focus a lot of the time. And his acting was really good. I found that their the group's vocals really fit a TXT song, in my opinion. I don't know, or just their vibe as a group, right? So I mentioned the team ranking for round 2. For the ace ranking, we have Hwanwoong and Soho as first, Taeyoung and Minhee as second, Myungho and Jaeun as third, Hyuk and Hanbin from Tempest as fourth, Junsuk and Lim Jimin as fifth, Eunsang and Woono as sixth, and Junhyuk and Kyungjun as seventh. In general, I would agree with this ranking. I would change it a little bit. I definitely think that the Unite Aces should be. Uh, I would have put them a little higher, just because I think Eunsang especially like really directed the focus of like the performance and all that. I think it's just because their performance got less votes, so they as aces got less votes as well. So if the team ranking, the number one team on the team ranking and the number one group on the ace ranking is not the same, then there would be a one-on-one ace battle between the two teams to basically determine the order of the performances for the next round. So Hwanwoong was first for the ace ranking, and then Hyungjun was first for the team ranking. Was the ace of the team that got first in the team ranking, right? So there ended up being a one-on-one battle between Hyungjun and Hwanwoong. Um, both my biases of the respective groups. So I was kind of having a fun time with this. Um, Admittedly, if I was Hyungjun, I would be very nervous, and I think he was right to be incredibly nervous. Hwanwoong is an incredibly good performer and has shown himself, even already at the point of the show, to be an incredibly good solo performer. You can just give him the stage alone and he will be absolutely fine. Um, Hyungjun goes first. His dance is really good. I really liked it. I think it was great. Um, it was a little underwhelming as a performance. So basically, Hwanwoong won, and he won by quite a bit. But I think what really had him stand out was the fact that he was a lot more focusing on the performance aspect and again trying to tell a bit of a story even through this like 1 minute performance, right? And I think that that's a little more captivating for the audience. Yeah, but he ends up winning. So Juanes gets to decide the order of the performances for round two. That being said, round two is the identity round. So they're supposed to perform one of their songs or a mashup of two of their songs and basically show what makes them stand out as a group. And I could already see this being a disadvantage for the crew one because it's hard to have an established identity when you just debuted and you also don't have a debut release, right? So I definitely think they were at a disadvantage for round two. For the rankings, um, for the team performances, uh, Gravity gets first, Juanes gets second, 8 Turn gets third, Tempest gets fourth, the Crew One gets fifth, Unite gets sixth, and the New Six gets seventh. For the aces, this time around it's two aces instead of one. And this is where you'll see certain groups apply a different approach. Some groups will do like, okay, well, the ace that they had for round one plus someone else. In the case of ONEUS, right? They had Kwanung and then Soho as well. For 8 Turn, they had Myungho and then Jaeyoon as well. That kind of thing. For some groups, they decided to just completely change the aces and to have people who, in my opinion, work well together. Gravity chose Taeyoung and Minnie, and I think that was a pretty good call for this round. It was pretty interesting. Um, Gravity did Love or Die, and actually the New Six also did Love or Die, and that the other group saw it coming, the audience saw it coming. I am not a huge fan of Love or Die, to be honest. I was more a fan of like the Masterpiece era of Gravity because I remember like listening to that album for the first time and it was really, really good. Um, their more recent releases I was less necessarily like a fan of. Anyways, that's neither here or there. ONEUS did No Diggity, which I was not the choice that I was expecting. But they end up doing Luna later on, so if you want to talk about their identity, I just would have considered that their identity as a group, but I totally understand them not going for that because they were also trying to kind of veer off from their vibes from like season one of Road to Kingdom, right? So I get that. 8 Turn did Tic Tac, my favorite song of theirs. Y'all, this 8 Turn performance was so good. Because, like, here's the thing. The one thing that I knew about 8 Turn, like, I have listened to all of their title tracks, all of that. The one thing that I know is their shared degree in cuntology. So I was like, okay, well, if they're going to be on Road to Kingdom, I expect to see some gaggery. I expect to see some real good shit. And I was a little underwhelmed in their first two performances because I was like, okay, this is fun, this is vibes, this is very like XL. But I wanna be floored a little bit, and I know that they're more than capable of it. And this round really showcased that. And they continue that later on throughout the show. And it was all around really exciting to see. But yeah, I was absolutely living for it, the whole performance. Tempest did just a mashup of two of their songs. I don't know these songs. It's yeah. The crew one also does a mashup. They pick Jinsuk and Lim Jimin as their aces, and I think I mean it's a good call to choose like one ATBO member and one Just B member. Um, I feel that it provides some balance, I guess. Uh, they did like a Harry Potter concept. Like I mentioned, it's difficult for them to find an identity that they have as a group. but the choice of concept was admittedly a little confusing. Um, it's a fun performance, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it fits with the theme. And I think that that kind of hurt their ranking there. Unite performed Waterfall, and y'all, the fact that they got sixth place for this performance is a little sad because they like talk about it later on and they're like, oh, we got to do something different because like clearly people didn't like this. I want you to know this performance is so good. This performance is absolutely wonderful. It is musical theater. It's got story, but it's like fearful, but it's also a little sad. It's great. Unite's explanation of like their logic of like what this performance is going to be before each performance, right? They insert a little thing of like the behind the scenes. And Winsung specifically is really methodical and really smart of like this is what we're going to do. This worked well last time. This didn't work well last time, right? And his explanation of this performance especially is really thought through because he goes like we're not going to do it all fearful the whole way. Like we need to tell a story of like there's like some sad aspect in there of like getting knocked down but then a feeling of like getting back up again, right? So you can kind of take the audience on that kind of emotional journey. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. um the new six did Love or Die. The problem with this performance is that the aces didn't stand out at all. Uh, I'm reading here that it's Junhyuk and Kyungjin. Watching the performance, you really can't tell. Like they're the only two that go up on their little scaffolding or whatever, so like fine. Um, but I will say that that stage was really cool. They used ladders as props, and that was really creative. To be fair. So that was cool. So then the team with the lowest score and the aces with the lowest score, those teams have to do an ace one-on-one battle, and the result of the battle would determine the elimination. So this is the first elimination of the show. And this one-on-one ends up being the crew one and the new six. So for this, they got to choose the number of aces that they wanted to have. I imagine they capped it at two, but they were just like, you can have either one or two aces. And I do think that choosing two aces makes more sense. Um, to be honest, to me, I'm just like, there's power in numbers. If you can choose to have two aces, might as well go for it. That's what the crew one did, not entirely surprisingly. Although this time they chose two ATBO members, so it was Seungkwan and Junsuk. And then the new six picked Hui, who is their rapper and producer. And he also like composed a lot of the music for their like previous rounds of the show, but also I'm sure produces and composed a lot of like the new six's releases just in general. Um, he's obviously really skilled, so props to him for that. But this battle, I really don't like getting into specifics of like who should have won or whatever. Um, I was rooting for the crew one, but I was also biased. So, there is that. Um, but I think the new six Hui's rap performance I was a little bit bothered by it just because there's pauses that he takes in his rap. And to me, it's a situation where if you only have like a limited amount of time, um, I understand taking breaks, but like having the backtrack carry you like while you're rapping, I don't know. I have much higher standards for rap, I will admit. Just because I don't have a rap background, but I do have a like dance background. And so I'm like a little more forgiving for dance kind of thing. Uh, but like I would have my initial thought going in was the only way that I could see Hui winning, the very least in my books, was if it was like the best rap I had ever seen. And unfortunately it wasn't. but but I had really high standards for that, I will admit. The crew one did a dance duo, and it was good. It was fine. It was okay. They ended up winning, so the crew one ended up not being eliminated, and the new six were eliminated. Some notes from episode 5. At this point, I had gotten really annoyed by all of like the fake playing instruments. I really don't see the point personally. I'm like, if you're going to play an instrument on stage, either play it live, which is a big ask, admittedly, or just don't put an instrument on stage. I'm sorry. To me, it looks lame as hell to just go like boop 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 boop. Like I'm sorry. Just at that point, don't don't do an instrument thing because it's also a kind of thing of like, okay, well, if you're holding this instrument, like, fine, but then like you're restricting your movement, so you won't be able to do like in more interesting choreo. You know what I mean? So at that point, I'm just like, do dance number. Um, but yeah, because especially the new six and Gravity are guilty of this too, of like the fake piano playing, and I was like, are they actually playing the piano? And then they would just get up and the piano would continue playing, and I was like, I guess not. It was kind of goofy, I'm not gonna lie. Um, the crew one did a Harry Potter concept this time around. Cause like, yeah, it's hard to define their identity as a group, right? And yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a good performance. I just don't necessarily think it was on theme, right? Um, Eight Turn did a like pharaoh concept. They were like, oh, like Egyptian uh I'm not one to talk on this, but like it was that kind of vibe. And they went for like big sets, big props, big production, and it was such a gag. I was absolutely living for it. Um, the crew one's performance, they did some like pyrotechnics. There was like they were trying to do like actual magic in the on the stage, and I think it looked real fun. It was really good. Um, Lim Jimin did get injured during not during rehearsals, I think during the actual performance or something. Or no, the rehearsal for the performance. Again, not cool with people getting injured on the show. I'm aware that it happens, but I would like for it to happen less. Please, let's put more safety precautions for this kind of thing. And especially, so the way that he got injured is he hurt his ankle jumping from, they had this like staircase prop, and he jumped down from it. And he's a relatively tall guy, right? But this is like a pretty steep drop, right? And he ended up taking all of that impact on his ankle, so he hurt his ankle. And I'm like, at that point, if you are, again, it's just too risky. Just walk down the steps. You know what I mean? Like, only do that kind of jumping stunt or falling stunt if you know that you have the proper padding. I'm coming at this from an angle of a Cirque du Soleil fan as well, and there have been many accidents in that, but they take all of the precautions, and it truly is the kind of thing where someone, like, people can get seriously hurt, and we have seen it, and I don't want to see that in a case where I know that that kind of thing is preventable. Like, you can literally just walk down the stairs. Anyways, no, but props to Lim Jimin for trying, I guess. But like also if you get injured during the rehearsal, but the whole point is that you're supposed to do this stunt where you're falling down and like you know that it's going to hurt your ankle again, but you're like I'll suffer through it. Just pick someone else to do it. You have another ace. I don't know. I get that they don't want to change the whole choreography. There is so much of like all of the behind the scenes of the show of multiple times of the ace going, "Oh yeah, like I hurt myself," or like I really couldn't figure out this move, but like I had to do it for the team. And so I just suffered, I just took it. And I'm like, I understand where they're coming from. And sometimes the outcome of that was positive. But there are moments where you have to ask, is it worth it? Because if you want to look at it from a logistics standpoint, if you're spending all of this time agonizing over, like, oh, this move has to be perfect, this stunt has to be perfect, all of that, that is time that you could be spending on the rest of the choreography, right? So if you really want to look at it from that angle, you can at least make that argument. A proper plot and maybe like some fight choreo could have been nice because they kind of set this thing where like one of the aces is like one of the houses and the other ace is the other house, right? So I'm like, you could make it a little bit of a battle of like the battle of the aces, right? And there's a winner and something like that would have been fun for one of these performances if you're gonna have two aces, like pit them against each other a little. So the notes I took for One Us's performance, everyone's makeup for this stage, stunning. Lito's makeup especially I really liked. But like Shion's makeup, absolutely stunning. Everyone's makeup that round was real nice. Um, I think this performance was really cool. For One Us, it felt powerful. It felt good. I don't know, it just felt good. The harmonies were really good. The vocals were so live, like obviously live, because you can hear there's a part where Soho's getting like dragged back, and you can hear the volume of his mic changing a little bit, as he's getting lifted and stuff, but he keeps singing throughout that whole stretch, right? It's really cool. That's just impressive. Like, I'm not gonna lie. For round three, we finally have a performance with some of the group members performing together. I think one of the things that made Kingdom Legendary War so great was that we got to see a lot of collaboration stages from all of these different groups. So now we have two aces from each group. One of the aces is performing in one of the performances, and then the other aces are performing in the other performance. These performances were really good. Um, okay, let's get into it. Um, the winner of this performance, because they base it on like individuals, right? They base it on the individual ace. The one who wins is considered the super ace. So for the ace battle, we have two songs, two stages. You have the water stage and the fire stage. The water stage is this song called Paradise. And oh my God, I'll admit I wasn't crazy about this song at first, but the more I listened to it, and like I've had this song stuck in my head for the past few days, like it's so good, but especially it's so good with the vocalists that they have. Everyone's voices here work fantastically. The water stage was my personal favorite. I think it was the audience's favorite in general, as far as I can tell. Um, but Framework was I'll say what I thought about Framework first. It's fine. I think what stood out to me was Junsuk's little intro, his little dance in the intro. I think was really good and was the first time where I went like, because I'm not a fan of ATBO at all, was the first time where I was like, oh, okay, I can really see why they're choosing him as the ace so much. Like he really is a good dancer. And that was my first time where I was like actually paying attention to that. Leto gets picked as the ace for One Us for this stage, which I think was definitely a good idea. He does end up ranking last out of everyone, and in the behind the scenes, he doesn't have the most competitive spirit, which to me as a two moon was not surprising. He's not known for being super pushy and like competitive and like having needing to get what he wants. Like that's not really who he is. So it was kind of funny to see him like to see everyone else like practicing for this performance and like this position and like really working hard and just to see him like either kind of struggling or just literally sitting there just being like, okay. Um, but yeah, a bit amusing, but also like Leto does not have a survival show background. Uh, I don't I like the only ones that he's done are with the group, right? At the very least for like idol survival shows. Um, so I don't blame him for necessarily being a little out of his depths, right? I'm sure that's the case for some of the other members in this performance, but I'm actually not sure. Fact check me on that. If any of the fire stage aces have been in other survival shows. For the water stage, uh, for both the water and fire stage, they had like they divided all the parts, so everyone competed for parts, competed for the best part, whatever. But then they had a hidden ace, I think they called it, or a hidden part, which is basically like a couple seconds of like a solo, right? In both of the performances. And so then they would compete for that again. Is it a good idea to like come up with a whole new position like halfway through when they're practicing? In my opinion, no, but I don't know the timeline of this, so it could just literally be like the day after. Um Either way, uh Jaeyoon gets the part for the water stage. And I believe Junsuk gets the part for the fire stage if I'm not incorrect, because he had the little solo at the beginning that I really liked, and I'm pretty sure he got picked for it. Jaeyoon in this water stage, my new obsession. He was absolutely fantastic. His vocals are incredible. They just work so well with this song, and like the outfits for Paradise are so cunty. You know, I love myself this little like white like with the harnesses and shit and um like Shion's like black glove. Like I was absolutely living for these outfits. Definitely I would say possibly not my favorite stage of the whole show, but definitely up there. Framework was fine. Honestly, just didn't really like the song all that much. But the dancing was good. The outfits were pretty good. I especially liked Taeyong's outfit. And so the Super Aces were chosen as Jaeyoon and Taeyong. Understandable. I actually put my rank for the Aces for both of these performances. For the water stage, it was Jaeyoon, Hwanwoong, Hyuk, Xion, Minnie, and Sungwon. And then for the fire stage, it was Jinsuk, Lu, Myungho, Taeyong, Lido, and Hyungsuk. So do with that information what you will. The actual um, ranks for these performances was Jaeyoon, Minnie, and Hwanwoong actually tied for second. And then, oh my gosh, Hyuk, Sungkwan, and Xion. And then for the fire stage, he had Taeyong, Junsuk, Myungho, Lu, Hyungsuk, and Lido. So in this episode, Sangwoo speaks for the first time. In like the whole show, he makes a little joke, and everyone thinks it's funny. And like even the ATBO members are like, "Oh my god, he said something. That's crazy." If you happen to be an only B, Sangwoo doesn't talk all that much, and he is like seen as a peculiar guy. I vibe with him. I completely get where he's at mentally. Like I don't think he's weird at all. That's just Sangwoo, man. Some of the notes I have for the performances around three. Tempest has a little stage mishap. But like at least the vocals were live, like you could tell. But that definitely hurt them in the ranking. Um, they did like a wire trick, which these people are not acrobats. Wire work is really difficult. I wouldn't necessarily expect them to do that kind of thing for this kind of show. I understand that they want to be ambitious, but again, I've said this several times already. At what point is it too much risk for barely any reward? I think this is definitely one of those cases where it was like there was a mistake that happened because of it, and the reward would likely have been like, "Oh, okay, that was kind of cool." Hyuk was sick during this round, and I really don't think that, especially the ace, should be performing sick. I think I understand the show must go on, but I just it I I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like seeing them being like actively sick and like, oh yeah, but we still need to do like our 10 hours of dance practice. Like I don't they show the little teaser for Unite's performance, and like that teaser alone altered my brain chemistry. I was so sold. I was very excited. The crew one does Sherlock by Shiny, which stands with my theory, which is not correct anymore, but I originally had a theory that Bane only did songs by like female idols or Shiny. Because that was the only thing that I had seen him do. So it was a bit of an inside joke of myself, but that's no longer the case with this show. But it was, I don't know, it was just amusing to me. Um Tempest did Jopping by NCT. No, not by NCT, by Super M. Uh, a lot of these groups did SM performances, which I think is partially due to Taemin being the host for the show. But I think, as far as I can tell, groups do very much like SM groups as well to do covers and things. So that's to be expected somewhat. Eight Turn did Love Dive by IVE. ONEUS did Luna, their own song. They're the only ones who didn't do a cover. And then Gravity did Overdose by EXO. The rankings, we'll get into the rankings and then we'll get into my notes. Gravity got first, Unite got second, ONEUS got third, Eight Turn got fourth, the Crew One got fifth, and Tempest got sixth. Some of my personal notes on this. Um, ONEUS and Eight Turn both did like a scene where they like fall into the water, right? It's something that you see fairly like here and there in music videos and things especially, right? I do think that those kind of scenes are really cool. I love underwater photography, underwater filming, I think looks absolutely like really nice. Um I will say that the staff maybe should have checked what the groups were doing in their performances to make sure that kind of thing didn't overlap. Because taking the time to like go shoot a scene underwater takes a long time, and like if it affects the ranking of like if they do something similar in their performances, right? Because it can look bad on both of the groups. I would definitely just have the staff check for that kind of scenario, make sure it doesn't happen. But anyways, I guess it was unavoidable. I figured that Tempest would probably get the last ranking because of the mistake, which is unfortunate. But again, having something like live vocals, it can make the show more interesting for the audience. But yeah, because there's higher risk there, right? And unfortunately, that's part of the risk. Sometimes you mess up, and it doesn't always affect your rank, but sometimes it does. Unite was treating the performance like a school project. They had like a whole bit where they were like pitching their concept to like the rest of the group, right? And it's actually fun that a lot of them, or two of them, Unsung and Day, both basically came up with the same concept. And then someone had something else that was a little slightly different. I think this bit showed their teamwork really well. Um, Obviously that they already had relatively the same idea, but also that they were able to coordinate and make sure that everyone's voice was heard and that everyone's idea could be incorporated with the performance was really great. So they were tossing around like some songs that they would do because they would because Unite was like, okay, we'll do a zombie concept, right? We'll do a post-apocalyptic kind of vibe because they wanted to do a little more something a little more intense than Waterfall. And like, I really don't think Waterfall is bad, but I'm all for going for variety and doing something a little darker and then something a little lighter. I think alternating between those two can work really well. So I'm all for that. And then Day suggests a girl group. Day's like, how about Espa? Armageddon. Hell yeah. I was all for it. I was like, again, I saw that trailer and I was gagging. I was all for it. So that got me thinking that especially with a show like this, you really want to come up with a stage that you want to perform on, right? Like you really got to think like, oh, what is a performance that either would impress me or that I've always wanted to do and that I think would be really impressive, right? That's kind of the angle that you got to go for because like if you don't want to perform on the stage that you created, then like what's the point, you know? Which is why like it's also really important to give control to the actual members of the group over what the performance is actually going to look like because then they're more motivated to actually perform well and also that they have a clearer vision of what the performance is supposed to look like. Some of these groups had the attitude of like we should perform a popular song, I think was what Gravity had said. Was we should perform something that's popular. I disagree with that sentiment personally. I mean, if you want to get into it, I don't like the popular groups all that much, whatever, whatever. Again, heavy air quotes on that. But like K-pop fans are a very mixed bag, and like a lot of us don't particularly care about how popular a group is in order to recognize their talent and to like their music. I don't know. When 8 Turn picked a girl group song, so there's two groups that picked a girl group song, which fantastic. And the fact that it was different groups as well is also really nice. But 8 Turn picks Love Dive by IVE. And it's funny because at some point Gravity goes like, "Oh well, they should have asked for our permission," which was kind of funny because Gravity's in the same company as IVE, and are also like they're seniors. So it's like you should have asked our permission, but it was all jokes. But no, that was funny. Jaeyoon says straight up, and I quote, "Some people might not like that we're doing a girl group song basically for no reason." And he's so right. He's so right. Because why do some of y'all look at a boy group covering a girl group song and go, I didn't do it well enough. It's not close enough to the original. I'm just gonna hate on it. Grass. You need to touch grass. All of you. Grass. But yeah, it's a really good point. And I think if you're gonna go from that angle of like, I understand people being upset at boy groups like masculinizing girl group songs, if you will. I understand there can be some frustration around that just because they're like taking away from the essence of the original. Get that. It's obviously not a reason to hate on any group at all, obviously, especially in cases where they didn't decide that they were going to cover that song and like things like that, right? I'm getting off topic, but I definitely think that 8 Turn more than kept the essence of the song, but also very much made it their own like interpretation of it. It's so good. That, as time goes on, has really become my favorite performance of the show. In the beginning, it was definitely "Bite Me" by Unite. But yeah, both so good. Definitely my favorite stages of the whole show. It's just I feel differently about them as time goes on, right? So even if I say it's my favorite now, there's a good chance that there's I'm gonna have a different favorite later on. But yeah. Myungho does some tutting in this like dance break that he gets. And y'all know how much I love a bit of tutting for a dance break. I was absolutely living for it. Obviously like the dancers all around him looked really cool and like it really fit with the rest of the song. It was 10 out of 10. Just some notes. I did think that Myungho was a little bit like I watched the rehearsal video as well, and he's like marking it by like being a little floppy. And like, I want you to know if you're doing tutting, you really need to make sure that you are practicing those angles every time. You know what I mean? Like you can't just like, oh, I'll figure it out later, but I'll just do it like this for now. Like, because it does end up looking a little bit sloppy in the final performance, and I will admit that it didn't look as sharp as it could have. But there's room for improvement there, and I definitely think that 8 Turn could pull off some tutting choreo. Of course I do. Come on. And maybe I want to see it. Maybe I want to see it. I want to see tutting in K-pop all the time. Don't take it from me. But yeah, 8 Turn practiced the camera work for their performance, and obviously Mnet used none of it. So like, what's the point? I do think that that's a really good idea, though, to rehearse the camera placement. It just would be nice if it actually reflected the final performance. For Gravity, one note that I did put was that they wanted to do that little like they were like, "Oh, well, we'll do like a Venom concept, right?" And they're like, "Okay, well, we can use this like science trick of like this not science trick, what's it called? We'll do this science experiment where you can put like beads under a glove, like magnetic beads, and then there's like liquid that runs up the it's cool. It's cool in theory, and on the YouTube videos that like do that, it looks cool. It is too risky to do for a stage performance. I have said this too many times already, but when the risk and the reward does not pay off, I'm all for using effects and pyrotechnics and things, but if you can see that it is probably going to go wrong, scrap it out of the performance. And I know it's like rehearsal and then time pressure and all that. I understand that. But like in cases where like it feels too good to be true, it probably is. And you can tell the adjustments that they made because they were really struggling during the rehearsal. And you could tell some of the adjustments that they had made to be like, oh, okay, well we can still fit this in the performance, right? Because it like looks cool. Um, just looked a little lame, to be honest. Cause like he has like gravity do the work, right? Cause it like just ends up like kind of dripping down the glove anyways, and it's again just a bit underwhelming. I would have scrapped it. I'm sorry, I would have scrapped it. Gravity won first, so they were probably right about it's a good idea to do a popular song. Fair enough. I wasn't super aware that that song was like super popular, but like everyone um was like singing along to it during their performance. So like sure. I mean, I do know how popular EXO is. Like I do get it, and I have known that song for a long time. So fair enough. Um, my personal ranking for round three would have been Unite, 8 Turn, One Us, Gravity, The Crew One, and Tempest. I know that they do make the rankings and the voting of these shows complicated on purpose. I'm not blind to that. And it is it's a little annoying because I can imagine how frustrating it is voting. But yeah. So Tempest gets the lowest scores overall, and they are then eliminated from round three. So round four, the finale, you have Unite, The Crew One, One Us, 8 Turn, and Gravity. They also have the vocal aces do a performance together at the end of the show, basically. And I mean, at least Fane is the vocal ace for the Crew One, but like it was so surprising to me that like you have Bane, who has gone viral basically for his performance on Build Up, and you're not gonna pick him to be the ace in any of the rounds? Damn. I mean, to me, it just goes to show that they're like valuing dance a little more. I think he's a great dancer, but maybe Okay, maybe I'm wrong. No. But it did seem a little silly to me. Like I was like, toss Bane in the pit. Come on, he can do it. I believe in him. He's my bias. So I'm obviously a little biased there, but it's a thought that counts. Um, for episode 8. Episode 8 was long, y'all. I watched it recently and like, oh my god, it was so long. And it was a whole lot of nothing. Oof, it was a whole lot of nothing. There's so much waiting, which is typical because like they have to wait for the votes to come in and stuff. But like the entire time it's just Taman staring at the camera, like not really moving and like speaking every 30 seconds. And it was making me a little uncomfortable. I can't lie. I was just like, what? What? They have some variety content where they have interactions between all the groups. Or no, not even. Sorry, they're all separate. All separate groups, but there's so little interactions in this show, y'all. If that's what you're watching it for, don't even watch the show. Like it's not worth it. Unite goes bungee jumping, and then like one us goes to the hot pot place, and Connie has Soho tries sauce. It's a little random. There's a lot of like just fun. Gravity goes to like a temple to like meditate and stuff, which they definitely need. That's great. That's great that they got some relaxation time. Fantastic. I forget what the other two groups did. A couple of my notes on episode 8, because again, it was a whole lot of nothing. Uh, I found that Hwanung and the dancing, because they had all of the aces dance with, well, they had all of the aces dance, and then Taemin performed at the beginning of the episode. And I think of all of the, because it was all dancing. It was all dance performances. And what are we saying about what makes an ace? Is an ace just a good dancer? Is that what we're implying? Because like, ugh, I know a lot of aces who like dance is not their position. Again, Bane. But like that, yeah, even as a dancer, that I don't like that we're making it obvious that that's a bias there, that like your only worth as an ace is as a dancer. Really strange. Anyways, they do dance performances with each of the aces, right? Unsung's bit was really nice. It was really good. He starts it. It's real good. Jinsuk's was fine. It was just, yeah, it was a good dance. He's a good dancer. What can I say? I did find that of everyone, Hwanung was really good at like hitting the beats really precisely, and that's what I really like about him as a dancer. Is he's very, very, very intentional about like m- he has really good musicality, but like making each of the beats really obvious. And like he takes up a lot of space, right, while he's dancing, and makes each of the moves again really obvious, right? Always really cool to see. Jaya, she slayed the house down. I was gagging. I was actively gagging. So good. So incredibly good. It was a whole whacking bit. It was fun because when you're on stage with Taemin, you do a whacking performance. Obviously. I get it. And yeah, it was really good. What can I say? Maybe I'm gonna have to stay on 8 turn. Like I don't, but I need more of this because I don't know if I want to stay on 8 turn if all they're gonna do is like the fun and fresh concept always. It's fun. It's just not for me. This stuff is for me. So yeah, if I stay on 8 turn, I'm probably gonna stay on 8 turn anyways. But I'm looking forward to more moments of like, boots with the fur. shock me, gag me, make my jaw drop on the floor. Come on now. Taeyong was Gravity's ace for this round. And his dance was fine. It was alright. It was pretty good. Everyone was good. No one was bad. This is the finale. Come on now. No one's gonna be bad. The crew one, interestingly, assumed that they would win in the beginning. And they did rank pretty high in the evaluation from the other groups. But again, they don't really have a fandom because they debuted a couple months ago. And a lot of their fans just probably aren't even aware that they're on the show. Because they assumed that they were going to win because they were like, we're a mega crew, we're super good dancers, we're really skilled. And if this were based on skill, then you might have a point there. But don't necessarily think that the rankings of the show are based on skill all that much. I'm not saying the Gravity isn't skilled. Obviously they're skilled. Come on. The delightful Jinsuk ponytails are back. I love that hairstyle. There's a Weekly Idol episode that ATBO and 8 Turn did together. And that was Jinsuk's little hairstyle. It's so cute. I love it so much. It's great. And like Pony bringing the group to a hot pot place to try his sauce and all that. It was fun. It was really fun. As a 2 Moon, I liked it. Was it Coney's excuse to feed Soho? We'll never know, but I would not blame him for doing that just so he can feed his roommate with his own chopstick. I'm not saying anything there. But they do like at the Soho comes in the room and like Coney and Soho hug and it almost made me cry. It was so cute. I don't know. It's just them hugging, but I was like, it's so sweet. I love the roommates. All of the performances had really good staging. Gravity with the doors. Uh oh my gosh. One Us with the tables and like the platforms and all that was really cool. And then like Unite with the swords and the castle and all that. All really good, just to name a few, right? Oh my gosh. The crew one with the skate park and everything was awesome, and like having the boxing ring and then having the boxing ring flip sideways was absolutely sick. Um, yeah, it really showed that like they all got better at like making use of the space, and that's great to see. Yeah, there was a moment in 8 Turns choreo where they used dancers as a basketball hoop that proper got a laugh out of me. That was really funny. The rankings for like they pulled up the rankings for how each of the songs, because each of the songs in the finale round is like essentially treated as a new release by each of the groups, just under the guise of this show, right? And they say like, oh well, we're gonna base some of the points on like what this song got on the charts. And I'm like, at that point, that's just fully based on fandom size. Sorry, like, and the ranking very much reflected that. Like, there was no surprise there. Gravity just losing a prop, like obviously so. That's one of those situations where I'm like, honestly, Taeyong, just pretend you weren't holding a prop, pretend you weren't supposed to hold a prop, you know what I mean? Just adjust the choreo a little bit. I feel like there's a lot of situations where they like feel like they really need to stick to the choreo no matter what. And I'm like, y'all, if you're missing a prop, you don't have to do the exact same choreo as everyone else. Just switch it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you have to make those last minute tweaks for things. And like the vocal aces meet up to do the recording of the song. And why are they all nervous to meet each other? This is the finals. They should have seen each other a bunch of times already. It's almost like they barely got any interaction, so they actually don't know each other as people or are comfortable spending time together. Ah. So if you're expecting any friendships to come out of the show, hey, I mean, maybe One Us and 8 Turn, they had a really fun dynamic, and One Us specifically, Connie is supposed to treat 8 Turn to a meal. So if they become friends, that's something, but that's probably the only one you can expect out of this whole show. The vocal performance. Let's talk about it. Again, I watched Build Up. I have pretty high standards for what a vocal performance can look like. And also, like in Kingdom Legendary War, the vocal performance was really, really good for that. Um, Not that I'm comparing the two necessarily, but I'm just saying like I had high expectations for this one. And I know that like all the vocalists in this performance are really, really good. But like the song was underwhelming, the vocals underwhelming. And from out of these five, disappointing, to be honest. I They didn't even harmonize. The I was just like, okay, bit of a snooze fest. Um and it's not a bad song. It's not a bad performance. It's just aggressively mid. And from all of these people, I would expect something a lot better. I honestly blame the whoever decided. I honestly blame the creators of the song itself because I think the song itself is just a very generic, a little bit boring ballad, right? And it's just not particularly interesting. Again, just give them like one high note. Like everyone getting like traumatized by the background music that they play before the voting. Yeah, that's on net trauma right there. Yeah. Yeah, that's what you can expect. The top two of the whole show, obviously, are Gravity and One Us. No one was surprised. And it's the kind of thing of like, obviously the show could have gone any direction at any point, as shown by like the very drastic drop and rise in rankings for some of the groups. Especially like 8 Turn, the Crew One, and Gravity saw like some really drastic changes in their ranks in the first two episodes, right? So like it could have gone anywhere. That's what they want you to think, and then they just make it so that the outcome is the one you expected. So what can I say? Wonjin from Gravity in their winning speech did mention how it felt like a lot of pressure that people was expecting Gravity to win. And I'm not cool with the fact that people put that kind of expectation on them, right? I'm all for understanding, because to me, it's really a thing of like, okay, well, the show is probably going to function in a way where they're going to prioritize fandom size. And because you have the biggest fandom, mathematically, there's just a good chance that you're going to get high points for whatever reason, right? And I think it's wrong for people to say, like, oh, well, you're the biggest group, you have to win, right? Like, it's not that. It's just the structure of the voting plays in your favor, so it makes sense that you're going to win. But again, it's not a guarantee. It is not at all a guarantee. One of us had a good shot at winning and very much could have won. Um, yeah, I'm looking at the gap in the scores right now and it's not huge. Like, there is a possibility there. And then the fireworks go off, they win, cool, great. Um, that's when we get a little bit of interactions where Unsung walks up to Minnie or Hyungjin, one of them, both of them, but like one of them first, and gives them a hug, and it was really sweet. And I'll take that as crumbs. Some other things that I forgot to mention. I'll just try to speed run through them. Basically, Gravity's first performance in the first round was Veni Vidi Vici, which I love that song. It's so good. It's my favorite Gravity song. It's so good. And I did like the fact that they performed it on Road to Kingdom. So great. I don't think I mentioned the gaggery, that the effect that the Bite Me performance had on me. Crazy. Insung's acting, like, crazy. Like this man needs like awards for that shit. It's very theater kid. I love to see it. But he's so good. Like there's also at the end of well, in the middle of episode 8, they do like awards for like random shit, which is kind of funny. And one of them was like a duality award that Unsung won, and like fair enough, because like his duality is absolutely insane. Last but not least, the performances that I will keep going back to, and I'll probably edit in a more updated list, perhaps, um, of performances to watch that I recommend watching. Um, I would say probably all of Gravity's makes sense. They're the winner. They're not gonna have bad ones. Um, Probably every One Us performance, they're really good. Especially One Us's like intro performance. The Who Got the Joker performance was like really good. They made some mistakes and like the other groups pointed it out, and it was a thing of like blink and you'll miss it. Like it really wasn't obvious. The Crew One's beginning performance, like intro performance is also really good. Um, Very dance crew vibes. And it was really cool. I would watch the Ace battles um, for fun, the little one on ones. Tic Tac by 8 Turn for sure. That performance is amazing. Love Dive by 8 Turn, also really, really, really good. All of Unite's performances, all of them. I would recommend those first. If you're only going to watch one group's performances, I would definitely watch Unite. They just show an incredible amount of variety. They just surprised me every single time. And I will be standing the group after this. What can I say? I They surpassed my expectations and I was really impressed, and I hope that their future music can kind of reflect the variety that they are capable of, because it's always a thing after these competition shows with these groups is like, okay, well, you can show an insane amount of variety and duality, but then you just go back to making the same stuff, and it's just like, okay, sure, I get it. You have producers, fine. But like, yeah. Also, props to Unsung, because he did compose like a couple of their performances. So props to him for that. Props to Hui from the New Six, also composed a lot of their performances. And yeah, massive respect there. I really tended to like the rearrangements that were produced by the members. They felt more like they had a clear direction, right? But yeah, the other ones were also good. Some of them were hit or miss. Again, with just Sugar Rush Ride by Gravity, I think the verses of that performance were really, really good, and like the staging of it as well was really cool. That chorus and dance break just didn't hit for me. Just wasn't really vibing with that. The crew one, I, their performance in the finale was my favorite. I think it was just really fun. The staging was awesome. Again with that that stage that literally like flipped sideways. It did remind me of like the cube that Gravity used in round one of the rounds. Um, that was also fun. Really cool idea. I like pieces that can like rotate and things like that is always really fun to see. Yeah, just dynamic staging. Always cool. Always fun. Luna by Onus was absolutely iconic. You expect it, and the rearrangement was really, really nice. They always, I mean, I've been listening to their Road to Kingdom version of Lit for a while, and they are really good at just adding more flavor to their pre-existing tracks. I think it's one of their specialties in these kind of shows. There was a little bit of a confusing situation like a couple like 2 days after the New Six were eliminated that one of their members, Kyungjin, announced that he was or well the company announced that he was enlisting in the military and that he was then terminating his contract with the company. Not entirely sure what that was about. And also, one of the members of Jesby wasn't in the show. He went on hiatus like a week after the Crew One debuted, something like that. So That's unfortunate because I was looking for him. I was confused. I was like, "Where is he?" But he's not there. Um, but that's fine. Just giving you guys a bit of context in case you were confused of like someone's missing. In general, was it worth it? No. This will likely be the last survival show that I watch. Um, I don't watch survival shows with like trainees, really, especially not anymore. Um, I don't I don't vibe. That's it. Go watch the stages I recommended. And then like nothing else because the variety content is like fine, but it's like a little boring, I'm not gonna lie. The interactions are again not really there. So yeah. Go be free and yeah. See y'all some other time. Hearts.